Was I wrong for what I did? Honestly, I've replayed that day in my head 1,000 times, and I still don't know. One moment, I was stepping off a plane, the next I was staring at my wife's tear-streaked face, and my son, my own flesh and blood, was laughing with his in-laws as if nothing in the world was wrong. It was a scene ripped straight from a nightmare, a betrayal so profound it still makes my stomach churn just thinking about it. Tell me, would you have done the same thing? Let me take you back to how it all began, to a time when I thought my life was perfect. My wife, Sarah, and I had been married for 25 years. We built a beautiful life together, weathered countless storms, and raised a son, Michael, who was, or so I believed, the pride and joy of our existence. Michael had recently married Emily, a sweet, seemingly kind girl from a prominent family in our town. I remember their wedding day so clearly. The sun shining, the laughter, the promises of a bright future. Sarah and I were beaming, watching our son embark on this new chapter, convinced he had found his soulmate. Emily's parents, the Davises, were always impeccably dressed, a little reserved, but I attributed that to their standing in the community. They were old money, we were comfortable, but certainly not in their league. Still, I thought we got along well enough. We shared pleasantries at family gatherings, exchanged gifts during holidays, and always maintained a polite, if somewhat distant, relationship. My work often required me to travel, sometimes for extended periods. This particular trip was for an important project overseas, a big opportunity for my company and for me personally. I was gone for nearly 2 months, the longest I'd ever been away from Sarah. We talked every day, of course. She'd tell me about her garden, the latest neighborhood gossip, and updates on Michael and Emily. Everything seemed normal. She mentioned a few times that Michael and Emily were spending a lot of time with the Davises, more than usual, which I thought was a bit odd, but I shrugged it off. New marriages often mean a lot of time with both sets of in-laws, right? I missed Sarah terribly, and the thought of coming home to her warm embrace, her delicious cooking, and our quiet evenings together was what kept me going through the long, lonely nights. I envisioned a peaceful reunion, a chance to unwind and reconnect. Little did I know, the peace I craved was about to be shattered into a million pieces. The flight back was long and tiring, but the excitement of finally being home kept my spirits up. I landed late in the afternoon, feeling a mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. As I walked through the arrivals gate, my eyes scanned the crowd, searching for Sarah. She was always there, waiting for me with a huge smile and a hug that could melt away any fatigue. But this time, she wasn't there. A flicker of worry started in my chest. I pulled out my phone, assuming there must have been a mix-up or that she was running late. Just as I was about to dial, I saw her. She was sitting on a bench, tucked away in a corner, her back mostly to me. My heart sank. There was something about her posture, the way her shoulders slumped, that told me something was terribly wrong. I approached her cautiously, my footsteps quiet on the polished floor. When she finally looked up, her face was a mess. Her eyes were red and swollen, tears still actively tracking paths down her cheeks, and her usually vibrant face was pale and drawn. My blood ran cold. "Sarah, what happened? What's wrong?" I knelt beside her, my bags forgotten. She just shook her head, unable to speak, fresh sobs racking her body. It took a while, but eventually, she managed to choke out fragmented sentences, piecing together a story that felt utterly surreal. It was about our house, about money, about Michael, mostly about Michael. My mind raced, trying to make sense of her disjointed words. She finally managed to tell me that she had been kicked out of our home, *our home*. the home we had built together, the home where we raised our son. I was utterly bewildered. Who would kick her out? Why? And where was Michael in all of this? We got into a cab, and she directed the driver to a small, unassuming apartment building across town. It was clearly a temporary rental, nothing like the spacious house we owned. The entire ride, she wept, murmuring about how everything had changed, how she didn't know what to do. My confusion quickly turned to a simmering rage. What kind of situation would lead to my wife being in such distress, and me being completely unaware? Once inside the tiny apartment, away from the public eye, Sarah finally broke down completely and poured out the whole horrific tale. While I was away, Michael and Emily had apparently been visiting the Davises almost daily. It started innocently enough, just family dinners. Then it escalated to lavish parties, trips, and expensive gifts from Emily's parents. Sarah had mentioned this to me, but I had no idea of the scale. It turned out the Davises had been showering Michael and Emily with money, cars, and even a down payment on a new house, all under one condition. They wanted our asterisk house. Not to live in, but to sell. They claimed it was a smart investment, for Michael and Emily's future, a way to consolidate their assets. Sarah was horrified when Michael first brought it up. Our house wasn't just a house, it was our sanctuary, filled with memories. She flat out refused. That's when things turned ugly. Michael, egged on by Emily and her parents, started to pressure Sarah relentlessly. He accused her of holding him back, of being selfish, of not wanting him to succeed. He said it was just a house, that they could buy another one later. Sarah, desperate to avoid conflict with our son, tried to reason with him, to explain the sentimental value, the stability it represented. But he wouldn't listen. The Davises, meanwhile, were subtly twisting the knife, planting seeds of doubt, making Sarah feel like she was the obstacle to her son's happiness. They even brought in lawyers, claiming a prenup had stipulations about family assets, which was an outright lie. Sarah, feeling cornered and isolated, eventually gave in under immense pressure. She signed over her half of the house to Michael, believing it would appease him and bring peace back to the family. She thought he would then sell it, and they would split the proceeds, allowing her to find a new, smaller place. She was naive. As soon as her name was off the deed, Michael, with Emily and the Davises' full support, moved swiftly. He changed the locks, canceled her credit cards that were linked to our joint account, and essentially locked her out of her own life. He told her she could stay at Emily's old apartment for a while, the one she was now living in, the tiny one we were in now. He claimed it was temporary, until the house sold. He even had the audacity to tell her it was for her own good, that she was being irrational and emotional about the house. He packed a small suitcase for her, filled with a few clothes and some toiletries, and told her to leave. He literally evicted his own mother. From the home she shared with her husband, from the home he grew up in. All while I was halfway across the world, completely unaware. Sarah was terrified and heartbroken. She didn't want to bother me with the drama while I was working on such an important project, hoping she could resolve it before I got back. But she couldn't. It had spiraled completely out of control. So that's the situation I was in, and I had to make a choice. My wife, my partner of 25 years, was homeless, heartbroken, and utterly betrayed by our son. And Michael, my son, was actively participating in this monstrosity, siding with his new family against his own mother. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have tried to talk it out, to reason with them, or would you have fought fire with fire? The next morning, after Sarah had finally cried herself to sleep, I lay awake, a cold fury burning in my gut. I called my lawyer, a trusted friend named David, who had handled all our legal matters for years. I explained the situation, trying to keep my voice steady, but I could hear the tremor of raw anger underneath. David was as shocked as I was. He confirmed that Michael had indeed orchestrated a complex legal maneuver, leveraging my absence to gain full control of the house. He had somehow gotten Sarah to sign a document that gave him power of attorney over her assets, essentially making her relinquish her rights. It was predatory and cunning, and it utterly disgusted me. The first thing David advised was to secure Sarah's financial future. Since Michael had cut off her access to our joint funds, we immediately opened new accounts and transferred what little liquid assets we could access. Then came the big decision, what to do about Michael and the Davises. David outlined our options, but my mind was already made up. There would be no reasoning, no gentle persuasion. They had chosen their path, and I would choose mine. I took Sarah to a nice hotel for a few days, away from the dismal apartment, to give her some space and comfort. While she rested, I started making calls, first to Michael. He answered, sounding surprisingly cheerful. "Dad, you're back. Why didn't you come home?" His voice was so innocent, so devoid of guilt, it made my blood boil. I kept my voice calm, almost unnervingly so. "Michael, we need to talk. I know what you did to your mother." There was a sudden, chilling silence on the other end. Then his tone changed, becoming defensive, laced with an arrogance that made me want to reach through the phone and shake him. "Dad, Mom was being irrational. This is for our future, for Emily and me. You'll understand when you hear the whole plan." My plan, however, was already in motion. "We'll talk," I said, "but not like this." I hung up before he could respond. My next call was to a business contact, a man who owned a major construction and demolition company. We had done some deals together in the past, and he owed me a few favors. I explained, in a very truncated way, what had happened. He listened, his silence heavy. When I finished, he simply said, "What do you need, old friend?" I told him I needed the house, our house, to be completely uninhabitable. I want it stripped down to the studs, all wiring, plumbing, everything removed. A shell. Make it look like a war zone inside. He understood immediately. The following day, David filed a lawsuit against Michael, Emily, and the Davises. It wasn't just about the house. It was about elder abuse, fraud, emotional distress, and a slew of other charges. The amount we were suing for was astronomical, enough to financially cripple the Davises' empire. I wanted them to feel the same pain, the same loss, they had inflicted on my wife. I wanted them to lose everything. Then came the day of my grand return to our house. I didn't go alone. I went with David, a local sheriff's deputy, and a team of professional movers. The house was now legally mine, as Sarah had only signed over her asterisk share to Michael, not the entire property. Michael had acted under the false assumption that my half would simply follow, or that I wouldn't fight. He was terribly mistaken. As the rightful owner, I had every right to enter my property. We found Michael, Emily, and the Davises in the living room, celebrating. Emily was showing off new furniture, Michael was laughing loudly, and the Davises looked pleased as punch. The sight of their smug faces, combined with Sarah's tears, still fresh in my memory, sent a fresh wave of ice, cold determination, through me. They looked up, surprised, then their smiles faltered when they saw me, my face grim, and the sheriff's deputy standing behind me. Michael stood up, looking confused. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to take back what's mine, Michael," I said, my voice dangerously low. and to make sure you understand the consequences of your actions. The sheriff's deputy then informed them that they were trespassing on my property and had to vacate immediately. Emily's parents, the Davises, started to protest, mentioning their lawyers, their investments. David, my lawyer, stepped forward, his face impassive. "All of that will be handled in court. For now, you need to leave. If you resist, you will be arrested." The scene that followed was pure chaos. Emily shrieked, Michael started to yell, and the Davises turned red with indignation. But the deputy was firm. They were forced to pack a few essentials, their faces a mixture of shock, disbelief, and finally, rage. As they were being escorted out, Michael looked at me, his eyes filled with hatred. "You'll regret this, Dad. You'll regret ruining my life." I met his gaze, my own eyes probably as cold as ice. "You ruined your own life, Michael, the moment you betrayed your mother." The moment they were out, the demolition crew I had hired rolled up. They were efficient and merciless. Within hours, the interior of the house was systematically dismantled. Walls were torn down, floors ripped up, fixtures removed. The sound of hammers, drills, and splintering wood echoed through the neighborhood. Neighbors came out, staring in disbelief, but I didn't care. I stood there, watching the destruction, a strange sense of grim satisfaction washing over me. It wasn't about revenge in a petty sense. It was about reclaiming what was stolen, about showing them that actions have consequences. The beautiful home, the one they so callously tried to exploit for profit, was now worthless. They couldn't sell it for anything but the land. The lawsuit dragged on for months, a bitter, draining battle, but we had a strong case. David had meticulously gathered evidence of their manipulation, their lies, and their predatory behavior. The Davises' reputation was shattered, their business dealings scrutinized, and their finances took a massive hit. Michael and Emily, caught in the crossfire, saw their perfect new life crumble. They lost the new house the Davises had bought them, and Michael found himself unemployed, ostracized by many of his former friends who had heard the story. Sarah, slowly, began to heal. The stress took a toll on her physically and emotionally, but with therapy and my unwavering support, she started to find her footing again. We decided to sell the stripped-down house for the land and build a new, smaller home somewhere quiet, away from all the painful memories. It was a fresh start, a chance to rebuild our lives, just the two of us. Looking back, was it extreme? Perhaps, did I go too far? Maybe. But what they did to my wife, to us, was an unforgivable betrayal. They tried to take everything from her, from us, and they underestimated the lengths I would go to protect the woman I love. Michael still doesn't speak to me, and I honestly don't know if he ever will. Emily and the Davises are a distant, painful memory. But Sarah and I are stronger now, our bond forged in the fires of adversity. We learned that true family isn't always blood. It's the people who stand by you, who cherish and protect you, no matter what. Like this video if you were on my side. Subscribe for more stories like this, and share your final thoughts on this whole mess in the comments section. I'll see you all in the next story.